Clinton still going after gun manufacturers. She says they should be held liable for illegal gun crimes. Watch this.
A law was passed a few years ago immunizing the gun companies and sellers from liability. I voted against it. My opponent voted for it. There is not another industry in America that has that kind of free pass. I will do everything I can to make sure gun makers and sellers are accountable, just like any other business in our country.
All right, former NRA President David Keene is with us now. David, welcome to the program. Would I be right in saying that if Hillary Clinton were successful and gun makers were held liable for any gun violence, gun death, it would be the end of the gun makers? It's that bad, isn't it?
It is that bad, but you know, Mrs. Clinton always gets it wrong. The fact of the matter is that if a gun maker makes a defective product and there's an accident with the product or something like that, they're as liable as any other industry. But no industry is responsible for the misuse of a legally produced product. Right. And what happened and why the Congress acted on this was because the anti-gun movement began launching lawsuits against gun manufacturers, trying to hold them responsible for criminals, for example, that misused firearms. And the whole effort was not that they were going to win these cases, but that they could pile up the defense expenses on the gun makers and drive them out of business. You know, we hear these names, Winchester, Remington, they're big names with a great history, but these are not huge companies that have deep pockets that can defend themselves against these sort of things.
Apart from that, there is the morality of it. Since when has the maker of a gun to be held liable for the consequences of the illegal use of that gun to which they're not connected at all?
It would be analogous for holding the Ford Motor Company responsible for the actions of the crazed driver who took a Ford and rammed it into a crowd recently out west.
Right.
The producer of a product can be held liable if the product is badly produced, is dangerous because of that production. But if it's a legal product, and a firearm is, and it's produced meeting quality standards, and someone misuses it, that's very different. And Mrs. Clinton doesn't seem to be able to grasp that difference.
Is it a long shot? If she were president, is it a long shot for this kind of liability to be inflicted, for want of a better word, inflicted on the gun makers?
I think Mrs. Clinton would need to take a significant majority of both houses in order to accomplish something like that. But you know, just because Mrs. Clinton and other national Democrats are anti-Second Amendment doesn't mean that every Democrat in the country is. They might wish they were, but the fact of the matter is that when you get to Congress, when you get to votes, there are people in Congress who listen to their constituents. And around the country, gun owners would not be very happy with this sort of an attack on their ability to buy legal firearms. So I think it would be very difficult for her to accomplish this. She's trying to pander to the anti-gun segment of the primary electorate within her party, and that's what she's doing now. But she's setting herself up for a very tough race in the fall because there are a lot of millions upon millions of Americans, not all Republicans, not all conservatives, many independents, many Democrats, who take the Second Amendment seriously and take candidates who seriously threaten their rights under the Second Amendment as somebody that should not be elected to public office. And she's courting real danger with this kind of an effort.
But if we approach November, and it looks likely that Hillary Clinton will be the next president, I would predict a sharp rise in gun purchases. What about you?
Well, a lot of Americans now are buying guns more than ever before anyway. But yes, I think there would be an increase in firearms purchases and ownership. You know, today, millions of Americans who never thought of purchasing or hunting or going to the range or using firearms, carrying them for self-defense, have bought them. The NRA's membership has skyrocketed, and the biggest segment today is among women who are realizing that under some circumstances, ownership of a firearm, training and using it, and having it available is their best defense.
David Keene, thank you very much for joining us, sir. We appreciate it. Come back soon.
My pleasure as always.
All right.